And I'll share my screen. All right. So just to kick off week 2, I do want to say thank you. There have been travel headaches and people have made last minute adjustments, and there have been forms to fill out and COVID tests to take. And I know that all takes a toll on everybody. So just thank you all very much for sticking with it and doing all the things. I really appreciate it. And games went pretty well. This is what it looked like. Closest game was Life West Beantown 17-10. Atlanta took a thrashing 0-51. New York stomped the Zons 52-7, and San Diego Orsu 61-12. So this is not great for the league. It's not really the numbers we would like to see or the close matches that we would like to see. They're at least putting up points, so that's something. And we'll keep rolling and hope it gets a little bit closer in the games. Any comments about that?
Well, I think the San Diego Orsu score shouldn't be looked at as that big of a difference.
Okay.
Orsu was just a little bit careless with their passes, and there were 3 or 4 very long intercept tries. And they learned a hard lesson about allowing clearing kicks to bounce.
Yeah, I was surprised that the score was that far apart, actually, when I finally saw it, because I enjoyed watching that match. So
the intercept tries are really cool to see, as well as the 100+ meter kick and chase, if you want just some entertaining tries to watch.
Yeah, I saw that one tagged. That's cool. One thing about the reports, we went over this last week, and I just want to reiterate, when we use red, it's only for law errors, missed knock-ons or forward passes, and big decisions that impacted the score or a card given or not given. So most things that you mark are going to be developmental. I know that we do have people on the team who are less familiar with advantage. So coaches, that's something that you can work with refs on, please.
Yes, Chris. So when you go in there, you got a couple of things to change from red to yellow.
It's done.
Good.
Not to call anybody out or name anyone or anything. Thanks.
Why, everybody can see them. It's not a secret.
No, it's fine. It's more than that one too, or I wouldn't have brought it up. So
I know it's more than that one, but that was the only one I was willing to call out.
Okay. Oh, the other thing I wanted to thank you guys for in the beginning, and I forgot about it until just now, is thanks for filling out the online feedback form. So it seems like the calls are going really well, and people have had some really good things to say, and things for me to take away and think about the way that I run the calls. So I appreciate that too. So with that said, let's get to it. Who wants to go first? Anybody? Start with Jenny Lou, maybe, since you had no video.
Sure. Yeah, I was able to pull one usable clip, and it is in the folder.
I saw it, so we can look at that one for sure.
Yeah, so I was basically went into it thinking, okay, make the call that the game needs and try to get a nice, fair contest and work within the story of the game. So the story of the game was Berkeley was really excited to play some fast running rugby. Atlanta was scrambling to put 15 people on the field, and most of their pack was life JV players. So just trying to hold Berkeley in the scrums, trying to hold Berkeley to a really high standard and ensure that everybody had a fighting chance. I felt like that was fairly successful. Really asked them to move together as a unit, go forward first when you're trying to turn over a scrum, and they got that and were awarded with 2 penalty turnovers. They did have 1 penalty against and 1 free kick, so that was in the earlier part of the game. So I felt like I was able to work with them on that. Any trends? Berkeley did attempt 3 50-22s, and they were successful with 1. So just something to keep in mind. Atlanta had a little bit of discipline problems with the offside, and 2 of those advantages turned into tries. And because of that, I wasn't able to publicly, tell that story. So I'm not sure they quite got the message, but I told the player specifically, and I warned the captain twice, but not sure the whole team got the story. Other than that, another goal was effective advantage. So 2 penalty kicks turned into tries. I thought that was a good work on. I'm really trying to minimize my penalty advantage.
Gotcha.
Cool.
Sounds
And
good.
then the one clip that I have is intentional knock at the halfway, and it was not the last defender, yellow card or penalty only.
Okay. Let's find that. There you are.
And there was about a 15-meter box where if the players came into it, you could see what was happening. But if they moved outside of that box, it was anyone's guess. And I had no idea what was happening.
Yeah, we'll try and see what we can see from this. It's not great.
Yeah.
So that was it.
Yeah, the player on the edge there, kind of in a tackle, but kind of not. It was not the last offender, but there was a significant overlap.
Yeah, it was going to be a 3-on-1 for sure.
That's a line break.
You think so?
I think so. Would have been. So yeah, I'm going yellow.
Okay.
Okay. I'd kind of be okay with either decision, but it's definitely a huge overload.
Yeah, for sure.
How much further do you think Berkeley's going to go if that knock on doesn't happen?
I think there would have been a line break. At that point in the game, yellow felt harsh to me. Maybe that's the wrong line of thinking, but
No, that makes a lot of sense.
No, that's totally part of the calculation.
okay. Because
Absolutely.
Atlanta was really struggling, and in the scrums, I was just trying to keep everyone alive and get the game going, have a fair contest.
How did
Yeah.
you handle this situation?
Penalty
obviously,
only.
penalty only. Did you say something to them?
Yep. I said that's an intentional knock on. Penalty only. It's at the halfway.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes it's useful to just let the captain of the other team know, like, you're killing them. I would have considered a yellow card here, but in this instance, we're just so they know, like.
Yeah, so that they don't get surprised if somebody gives a yellow next week.
Yeah,
Or
that's a good
upset with you
point.
for not giving it sometimes, or not understand. If you've given them what your mindset is, then they'll be like, oh yeah, totally makes sense. We don't want any of them to sit down either.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it wouldn't have helped Berkeley either, because they want a good match and they want competition. So that was part of the decision. But in a tighter match, yellow card.
Yeah. You look at her and say, yeah, that was probably a yellow, but this match didn't need it.
Okay, cool.
And she would have said fine.
Perfect. Any
All right,
other?
that's all I got.
Unless she's the San Diego 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so who wants to go next? No takers? Do I have to just pick somebody? Can't get to my thing.
Yeah, I could chat.
Okay. Sorry, my screen is doing something weird and I'm stuck. Let me unshare. Saw that yawn, Olivia.
It's like too many Zooms, right, Olivia?
I mean, I finish work and I go straight to a damn rugby Zoom. Not today. I took a 2-hour break today. That was nice.
Good.
But I can't finish my book I'm trying to finish.
I'm in the
book?
same situation.
The
wow.
Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Society.
I'm a member. The annual dues are absolutely insane. It's going to send me to the poorhouse.
I go through different phases. This is a World War II phase book.
I had to read that for book club, I think.
Mhm.
One time. Okay. So Marty. We got
Great.
stats on you.
Yeah, so this was my WPL debut. I'm super excited to be a part of the match. Definitely a little nervous going into it. Healthy nerves, but it's all part of the plan. Big work-ons for me this season are set piece comfortability, especially when it comes to scrum time. And thank you. So that was definitely a little work on, and I had plenty of opportunities to watch some scrums and rewatch scrums and on advantage just from this match, which was fun. And then specifically for this game, I wanted to let the players play the best game they can. So I have seen New York play in the fall against Beantown in a preseason. I have not seen the Twin Cities, but based on our conversation with coaches and captains pregame, they wanted to play as sideline to sideline quickly. So I was trying to give them both of that platform to play the game that they wanted to play. So going into it, the first half was tighter. I think the first score wasn't until like the 16th minute, so it was a little tighter than the 52-7. 17 of New York's points came in the last 11 minutes as well. So yeah, I mean there's still a pretty big gap, but it was fun to it was definitely a great time on Sunday. So if we want to hop in.
Cool. Any trends that you noticed during the game that we need to be aware
Yeah,
of?
yeah. On that token, we could start when it comes to that
Okay.
one scrum clip. Yeah. So like I said, scrum comfortability is not definitely a focus of mine. And this one is just a picture that I saw more than once, but this is a pretty decent clip of what's going on. Yeah, I think
Scrum
it's
penalty?
that top one. Not a good scrum picture.
Okay.
Yeah. So based on the guideline videos or the guideline video about scrum time, I definitely watched more than a couple of times. Definitely the angling and the squareness quotes were definitely my focus here. And then just there was a lot of standing up in the scrum, which was not managed by me. And yeah, I let sort of that get away from me.
Okay.
So that happened more than once. I feel like we don't need to watch all of them during this hour, but
Mhm.
they're all coded. Yeah, so I think that's both a trend for me personally and as well as New York's scrum.
Okay. So let's talk through it. How'd you handle it on the day? Did you just play through this?
So the very first scrum, I gave an advantage towards the Amazons for the white loose head standing up, which we could sort of see again in this picture. This is not the same scrum. And they were able to gain, I don't know, 30 meters. But since it was the first scrum, I let the standard drop, and then I had an opportunity to set a good standard, and I just didn't. Yeah.
Okay. So your take on this is that white is driving up?
Yes.
Is that what we're thinking? I wish we had the other side because I'd like to see the position of the orange loose head. So it looks like white gets popped to me. Anybody else have thoughts on this scrum?
Marty, it'd be good to talk through. Do you have a coach? Sorry, that's an ignorant question, but do you?
Yes, Scott.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to just talk through kind of the cues you want to look for. And challenge, like find a challenge for your first scrum to make sure you're happy with the first one. Like get it right, you know. And then a good thing to think about is if it all looks good, play on. Don't look for the wrong things, but if you have a picture in your head of the positive, go from there, as opposed to looking for wrong things. You look for too many things. Just is what's a good picture.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Olivia. All right, so what's next?
And then either one of them. So I think that second one is, yeah, the intentional knock.
Intentional knock?
So this is the second one within 10 minutes, both by the Zons. If you take out, well, we can't really see the full defensive line, but so if you take out that player, there would be like a 5-on-2, 5-on-3. At this point in the game, it's 35-0 towards New York. And if you take out that player, it would be an overload. Since it's right outside of the 10 or right outside the 22, and they were already up pretty significantly, I probably let that drop, but I did say that since there was no potential line break in the moment, but in watching the film, I probably could see a potential for a line break, but not a obvious line break. Yeah.
Yeah, this one's not as clear to me as Chris's. But a camera angle probably also impacts it because we're missing a chunk of the screen.
Yeah, did you PK or scrum? What'd you do?
I gave the penalty. Yeah. And the other one as well.
So your question is, was this or was this not a yellow card?
Right.
Right. I think that's really a maybe line break, not a probable line break. So as opposed to the one that we saw in Jenny's game, where that was absolutely certain line break. This one, I'm happier with PK only. That's my take anyway.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree,
go
but
ahead.
I would just be careful. We're hearing it a bit already. The score was this, the score was that, the game was kind of decided. Those things are important, but I would just be really careful about trapping yourself in those kind of thoughts of, oh, it's 45-0. I didn't want a yellow card because. Just be careful about that thought process.
Good point.
Definitely. Thank you.
Okay.
What's
Thanks,
that
everybody.
possible yellow card, Marty?
Yeah. So this is the this is a 0-0. This is early on in the match. New York's attacking. So I got a penalty here. They're going to take it quick, and then the not 10 on the goal line. So I blew that whistle. I probably could have. I don't know. This one, Lee and I chatted about for a little bit during the day, during our conversation. So that tackler is not there, and then the 9 shrugs off that tackle, and I don't know if that's because of my whistle or not. I just had a conversation with the captain because that was the third penalty. I just said, hey, that's not allowed. They need to all penalties need to go back 10, especially in the attacking 22. So I did sort of settle tempers, but I feel like if I didn't blow that whistle, that also probably could have been a try. So I just feel like, where do you get off about managing versus letting that develop in itself?
Who says they would card here?
Marty, is that your question, or is your question, should you have possibly played an advantage to let New York go in and score anyway?
So it was both of those
Okay,
questions.
twofold.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I was riffing sevens this weekend, and someone asked me how to look at advantage and like when to blow quick, because obviously you have to blow quicker in sevens. And a good piece of advice I got from PR once was that if you just take a breath, you can see if advantage can be played or if not. So like almost a silent advantage. But I think that player is away and very possibly scoring a try. If she doesn't score, then it's a simple penalty, and I think that's a yellow card because it's within the 5. But I do think that you can save yourself from even saying advantage if you just let it, you take one breath while you watch it play.
Yep, good,
Great.
that's good advice.
I think that's exactly what I would have said. Anybody have different thoughts?
And also agree with Brian saying that's a yellow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Did you
100%
and Lee-
yellow. Right,
sorry.
this is the WPL.
Yeah, and that's a yellow even if it's the first penalty of the game.
Yep.
And did you and Lee, I bet you talked about it, just delaying the mark, some other tactics to stop that type of activity also?
Right. Yeah.
Cool. Good clips. Any others, or is that's got it?
Yeah, that was just the 3. Thank you all.
Super. Thanks a lot, Marty. Chris, did you want to go next?
Let's do it.
Alrighty.
All right. Yeah, so week 2, second WPL in a row, coming straight from Tropical Sevens. I was definitely thinking about making sure I was transitioning from 7s to 15s effectively, which I think we saw a little bit of 7Z-ness in my decision making on the day. As always, I think for this season, my first goal is going to be let it breathe, let it breathe, let it breathe. Give myself an extra second to make whatever decision I'm going to make and see if we can get away from it. And kind of additional goal on top of that is to specifically do that around advantage. Week 1, I was playing a lot of advantage without even giving a consideration to whether or not something was going to come of it. So additional goal was to, if you're going to play advantage, have a reason why. Don't just throw out advantage because it's something you do. And then beyond that, third goal was to have kind of, again, twofold: increase presence with the players. And one simple way I was going to do that was by starting at the front of the line out and being there as they set up, just making sure the players saw me there, and then also taking that time to be really specific about my lineup setup. Line out set up. Because again, last week had some unacceptable errors around like missing hookers and things like that.
Huge improvement this week. Good job.
Thank you
Yes.
very much.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
think
great.
that was something Peter mentioned as well. I was doing that well in the first minute and the 70th minute. So
Yeah.
happy with that. And we have 4 clips. We can pick the first 3, and if we want a bonus one, we can do that as well.
We're doing much better on time this week than last week. So
Yeah, this is a fun one. So this was a kick. Well, this one might just speak for itself. When does a charge down become a knock on?
so basically the ball is kicked into her.
Yeah, it's like a line drive. She throws the hand out.
Or does it actually hit her hand? Oh,
It does.
Yep.
And goes forward.
So in the moment,
It's one of these weird, vague law things where it's like, when does this stop? And I was trying to think, like, the only comparable thing I could think is like, maybe basketball. Like it's blocking the shot when the ball's on the way up. It's goaltending when the ball's on the way down. And
I've
that ball
heard
was on the way
kinda
down for me.
similar.
So not that I was applying basketball rules to rugby, but just like where to draw the line. I mean,
yeah.
She
So
wasn't-
Peter, walk us through this one.
I saw that as a charge down.
Kind of the only fair way to look at it, isn't it?
Yeah, the problem is that Chris and I discussed when we talked, is that another San Diego player, another Orsu player pounces on that ball. Was there an opportunity for advantage?
well, there's definitely no advantage because Orsu ends up with the
Orsu-
ball.
Yeah.
No, but so did she deprive San Diego of a potential advantage?
In which case you get in trouble.
I mean, it's be it a knock on or be it a charge down, it's offside either way.
Yeah, it's
So-
offside played in front. Is that where you're going, Peter?
Yep.
So it's offside played in front, so you have an advantage accruing to San Diego. Assuming
Yep.
it's called a charge down, but then you have a
Well, if you,
penalizable
Yeah,
infraction,
penalizable, and that
Yeah.
player just reacted. So is that fair?
particularly for the field location.
yeah, that was the point that we discussed.
Hmm.
Why we threw this out here.
Or do we just play on?
Yeah, I'm happier with the scrum than in
No,
that case.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
No,
knock on?
I pointed out that scrum was probably as far as reducing penalties and stuff, scrum was probably the best option he could have gotten there.
Yeah.
Because you can't play on because it's come
Right.
forward off of Orsu, and another Orsu player has played it.
Can
And
we just answer Dan's question there as well? Because
Yep.
there is definitely offside on a charge down if you're in front of the
absolutely charged. There
if
it
you're in
is.
front of the charger downerer.
Yeah, that's a great
know.
rugby myth, though, that charge down puts everyone on side.
Yeah, it
Oh,
doesn't.
no,
Only because
kicking
referees
team,
have been yelling everyone on after charge down for the last 15 years.
What that does is it switches the offside onside responsibility from one team to the other in a really unexpected time.
Right.
Yeah, there's nothing special about a charge down. It's the standard offside law that
That changes.
right.
Well,
Force
it,
you played
it
the
al-
ball,
it
therefore
also
blue is
makes you
onside.
feel awful because in most cases, a charge down is a really good athletic play by the defender. And then you have to penalize his teammate or her teammate for jumping on, the natural reaction is jump on the ball.
Peter, what about the 10-meter law for
Doesn't apply in charge
you.
downs.
But to the kick,
The other thing that's sort of related to this,
because
yet
all these
another-
players were offside.
yeah.
Who? Oh, blue?
Yeah.
No,
Not once Orsu touched the ball.
No, but
No, but
okay.
there's
But they
a
were at this
green-
moment, so it's offside under 10 meter at the moment of the kick.
and then somebody who's onside ran forward. Did they have time?
This is why I
to-
said play on.
Yeah.
Just play on.
Yeah, we got two issues there. Is that to the point? If you're going to call it a charge down, then those blue players, and we don't need to worry about them being offside, but we do need to worry about. I don't even know what color the
Orsu.
Gold.
team on the right. Orsu, is that what it is? So any Orsu player in front of the person who charged the ball down, who then dives on the ball, that person's offside. So yeah, a bit of a weird.
Jamie, as long as I got you, similar situation in another point in this game. There was a knock on that was then played by an offside player.
I think
But-
we have that as a
Funny
clip,
you
don't
mentioned
we,
that. That
Chris?
happens to be one of the next clips.
Yeah.
Oh, we do have that?
We
Okay,
can
good.
hold on that.
Okay.
Let's find it.
Keep going down. There you go.
To penalize or not to penalize? That is the question.
That is the question.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I did,
unfortunately, this clip's not fantastic either.
but
Well, in that case, don't
Oh.
penalize.
Let's see.
okay, I mean, the player who played the ball was clearly offside. There's no question about that. My point was, I didn't think there was a member of the Orsu team who was in position to really take advantage of that knock on.
I feel like they're both side by side, though. The San Diego player and the Orsu player are running shoulder to shoulder right there.
Yeah, and then she would have been isolated amongst the cloud of San Diego players, so.
But I mean, there is an
But-
Orsu player right there to play the ball. I mean, if that's the
Yeah.
debate, I mean,
But, yeah, I'm not arguing, the rightness or wrongness of this call. It's in old law, there's a specific
Yes, there's
statement
been a law
about,
change.
well, before the rewrite,
Yeah.
knock on a player who plays the ball, in from an offside position after a knock on by their teammate doesn't get penalized unless it deprives the non-offending team of a possible advantage.
Which is no longer in law. That
And
is
it's no
true.
longer in law.
Yeah. It's that's a bummer, eh? I'm with. I think this is a penalty, and wherever you can pretend like that law is still in law, and if there is no material effect from the person in front picking up, you can call a scrum and tell the person not to pick it up next time. I think, but in this particular case, I'm happy with that as a penalty. And it sounds like everyone is really. And I'll add that.
Add that to
my
your,
little list.
how many pages are you up to now?
Enough.
Okay, this one's pretty self-explanatory, just a good example of the latch. Yeah, Chris?
Yeah, this is something Peter wanted to discuss. I think the latch is fine, but I think Peter was not happy with what the latcher does upon the tackle as far
Yeah,
as
off
keeping
beat.
Peter away.
Yeah, it just, I haven't seen that very often, or picked up on it very often, and I just thought it's worth looking at. Because that's
I think in this
definitely-
context, good thing to be conscious of, and maybe a downtime management, but no one from blue. Well, let's see again. I mean, I don't think that needs a penalty in that moment. Does anyone agree or disagree?
Chris, I heard someone say once, if only you know that you're right when you give a penalty, think twice. Now, you're right if you give this penalty. It'll confuse the tar out of everyone. So, as you said, downtime management, I think, is a good choice.
Cool.
Yeah, and at this point, it's probably 40-0.
Dangerous.
Yeah, I know, dangerous path to go down, but
But
Slippery
as long
slope.
as we all know.
And then our bonus one, if we want to watch it, is well, actually, it's something that I should have spoken to as far as trends going forward. Whoever has San Diego next week, make sure they're rolling away properly. San Diego's had 10 penalties in the first half of both my games. Whoever has Orsu, I know Haley talked about one from Orsu doing some really beautifully crafty things at the scrum. I was very conscious of that. And she wasn't crafty this week, but there's still some interesting angles where they'd hit and turn a little bit. And we only had one collapsed, scrum that was penalizable, and this was it. And we'll see what I called, and we'll see what the team thinks. Because I went both ways. You can kind of see my hip swing both ways on calling this one.
Okay, so you called blue for dropping it?
I called blue tight head for dropping it, and the picture I had at the time was that gold was square enough and was dominant enough that blue just didn't know what to do, so kind of just folded in. Upon further review, I think we see a little bit of jostling and a little bit of turning clockwise that might have given gold just of an angle to make this an unfair and illegal push, which is what caused it to go down.
So this is a tough clip because you're standing right where we need to see what that whose head's doing. But maybe if we can watch her feet here, we can see.
And that little turn right there.
Yep, right there. She does it.
Why did I change my mind? I don't know.
It's tough because you've got the cue of the blue tight head's knee hitting the ground. So depending on what you're focusing on, that call makes a lot of sense. But then when you get to the root cause of it, it's likely to be that gold loose head.
And as far as like the strength and size matchup, one gold. I mean, both the Orsu props had a serious size and strength advantage. And so it just didn't make sense to me that they were going to have to do anything, like dropping it like this or pouring it or anything like that.
have you ever played prop?
Yes.
It's a whole nother world. And their ideas of what makes rational sense does not necessarily correlate with the other 24 players on the field, 26 players on the field.
I'm sure they say the same thing about us when props discuss referees.
Yep,
Does
absolutely.
everybody on the call see what two things we're looking at and how those kind of tie in together? Marty, Dan?
Yes, thank you.
I think Chris's change of decision is interesting. Have you guys ever played those games where you make decisions based on your first instinct and then you see how accurate you are at the end?
Say that again?
So like you can play like decision games. It's yeah, like you can find an internet one, right? Like we play a decision game and it's a quick response and you go with your first instinct. And then if you take the same test again and you think about it, like you talk yourself into a rabbit hole. So it's learning how to trust your first instinct in decision making. So Chris's first instinct was based on his hips was the other way, right? And I guess what I'm getting at is sometimes your instinct has made the decision and you don't know why it did, but if you start to test your instinct, it's actually pretty good. And so learning to trust yourself. Like I'm not talking about his decision here. I'm talking about like how to trust yourself. Food for thought.
No, it's a good point. It's like with the SATs, right? And they're like, if you're gonna guess, go with your first guess.
That's why I never check my work, Olivia. It's just straight from the get-go.
That was a really good clip. That's it for you?
I just think from the chat,
That is it. Thank you.
Dan
Yes.
had a comment about the scrum. I think Emily wrote no, but I think she was responding to Olivia's question, and I just didn't want Dan to think
Okay.
Right, this is Emily. Yeah,
that-
I was not responding to Dan.
yes, that looked a bit bad. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, Dan, I think you're still wrong, but it wasn't Emily saying so. So anyway, there you go. Have a look at keep watching that clip later. All good.
Okay.
Continue on.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I need to do something or not, but we're moving on, right? And we're okay with that.
Amanda, out
Yes.
of interest, were you not asking the teams to provide camera angles from higher up?
Yes, the teams have very detailed instructions of how they're supposed to video.
And they've rejected those.
Is this one not from high up?
This was
Some of them
way high up.
are.
This was way up in the air. It just happened to be 100
Yeah.
meters away across the field.
I was like, some
The
of them,
San Diego video is sweet.
It's
yeah.
all right. It's all right. Resolution isn't great, but
Better than
Yeah,
Jenny's
and that's
video.
weird because last week's resolution was great. So I don't know what changed between last week and this week or what version of the film they gave me, but I was going to ask.
hey, at least they didn't do it from a drone.
Yeah, that's terrible. Okay, one left. Emily, how did it feel to be back?
This is Emily.
Hi.
It's great to be back. I took some notes so I would remember what to say.
I do too. Good,
I
good
haven't
plan.
participated in a call like this in a long time. Are you going to be scrolling through the report as I speak, Amanda?
I can. Do you want me to look at certain
Oh.
things or?
No, I feel like it's a bit distracting for myself. But you
cannot
can go to
scroll.
the game, like the report card probably tells the story that I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Oh, wait.
My computer just is doing this weird thing where it opens the wrong advantage report, which has happened to us like 3 times now on the call, but here you are. And I won't scroll.
Right. That's how I coded it. So I guess to start off, I think we had a really good game between Beantown and Life West, and both teams were very willing and ready to play. It was both of their first games of the season, and like this is my first 15th season in 5 years. But The game, I think, was closer than expected, and I think a lot of people were also surprised by the scoreline. So as I mentioned, I haven't refed a lot of 15s. I had a preseason, so that informed my game plan coming into this game. I didn't really want to overthink or overcomplicate my game plan. So in my focus areas, I wrote that my approach was to think about moving and positioning around the field to try and put myself in a position to see what I need to. I know that's very broad. I went into more detail in the more detailed game plan I sent to my coach. And in that game plan, I specifically planned not to worry about the number of scrum resets because I wanted to get the setup right. And I also wrote in that game plan that I would not worry about the penalty count. And the reason why is because historically I shied away from calling things I should have in fear of being too technical and in fear of having a high penalty count. So what happened, as you can probably see in this report card kind of screenshot, is that I over adjusted in kind of ignoring the penalty count. And that mindset, I would say, as Bob put it, I kind of fell into a more punitive approach where I was just penalizing versus like a preventative approach where I could have spoken to the captains or tried other things to prevent this very high number of penalties. And I think because I kind of probably shut off that part of my brain coming into this game, I feel I was also very slow to recognize trends, especially repetitive penalties. And by the time I did recognize it, it was like 20 minutes into the game, and even I don't even know if I was thinking about it enough then, and it was kind of late to set standards. So the learning from this is that going forward, I'll work with my coach to come up with a plan to address repetitive penalties, because when it's repetitive, it falls into the realm of foul play rather than like one-off things. Yeah, go ahead and click through it. I can pause there if you want to click through and show folks the patterns.
No, I just do it mostly out of curiosity and to
Yeah.
remind myself of the game.
Well, Bob and I spoke today, and he mentioned, if someone has a lot of ruck penalties, we typically look at the tackle. There was several tackle. Oh, hi, Bob. There are a few pretty clear and obvious on review tackle assists not releasing that I missed. And I will raise my hand and said I used the color systems wrong, even though I did watch the meeting from last week. I thought red meant wrong decision, not like law error. So if I missed something that I thought I should have called, I made that red, but I understand now that that should be yellow.
That's fine. We'll get it moving on.
Yeah. So I'm looking at my notes. I know we can only talk about 3 clips, and we are at 9:45 now.
We can talk about more if you want to. We've got 15 good minutes.
Great. Well, I was gonna talk about some things that I was not planning in the 3 clips to talk about. So trends in the game that I feel like may be up for discussion or for others to be aware of. I noticed Beantown, when they were close to their own goal line and anticipating like a box kick or clearing kick, they would put players to like idle beside the ruck. And this game, it happened twice in a row. I think Bob agreed that it wasn't necessarily material, but just to be aware of if they actually do like block people who are trying to charge down, that might come into the games in the future. I don't think
Were they onside?
No, they were offside. They were offside, idling beside the ruck.
Yeah.
Yeah. The defenders didn't seem to be like trying to chase down or apply pressure, but they were totally offside.
Yeah, they were just standing their pillow. It was very strange, right? And but the contest was over. Their life had stopped. They weren't going to do it. So then all of a sudden, it's almost like Beantown were too tired to go down. So they just kind of stood up like this and they just waited for the ball to get out. And life just, okay, we've already moved on. It's just very funny.
Good. And then another trend that I felt in the game, you might not be able to see it as clearly at scrums, but I bring this up because I know it was happening is, and it's one of our focus area about axial loading, which is leaning on the bind. I thought this was happening from both teams. I did give one free kick against Life West, and they corrected themselves for a few more scrums, and then it creeped back into the game, and I did not act on it. The Beantown hooker clearly has watched our focus areas video and asked me to pay attention to axial loading. And I think that keyword keys in the ref that they watched our focus areas. So for me, it seemed like it was coming mostly from the Life West hooker in this game. So that's another trend. Let's see if that continues or not. Let's see.
Yeah, those are great. Thank you.
Okay. And then, because Bob encourages that I start with a positive clip, I'll start with the one that he put in there for me. It's called Setting and Fixing Standards at the Scrum. I think Scrum Recognition and, yeah, it's that one. So this is just something that went right for me is when the number 8 was kind of doing the slingshot in a scrum beforehand, I missed it, but then I saw it and I asked them not to, and they fixed it in the game going forward. You can probably skip a few seconds ahead. It takes them a while, but all it is that I blow the whistle on bind and I ask the number 8 to bind. So, yes. And I expect will probably be a trend for whoever refs Life West. They seem to be this is an experienced player who will just do this until they're told not to. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed she unbinds early from the scrums too, and is looking around.
Yep.
Yeah, so I thought it was a great positive. She recognized it, instantly corrected it, and then it went away. So that's
Awesome.
just great job.
And while we're on this topic, I think this player might not use she, her pronouns, and I know we talked about using gender neutral language. So there is one example.
That would be great. Thank you. I was actually wondering that earlier too.
They use a different name now as a first name.
Yep, that's what I
But
thought.
we don't talk to them anyway unless they're the captain.
Okay. Perfect. Good reminder for our
Great.
group that we are going to try to use gender neutral pronouns.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. It just seemed relevant at the moment. Okay, so
Absolutely.
I think that's okay. So the next clip would be the one at the bottom called obstruction at lineout that Bob added to this folder.
It's a fun one.
The reason I chose this clip is because it was in our lineout focus area to make sure. So could you pause it for a second, Amanda? He said, I believe this is the second Beantown lineout in the game. At the first lineout, Beantown mauled and then had a bunch of momentum. They had a few phases and they scored their first try. That's like 3 minutes into the game. I think this is their second lineout. So I believe that Life West is expecting Beantown to maul, which they tried to do almost every lineout. So what happens here is that they don't try to form the maul. And I called Beantown for obstruction because the ball was not with the front player and they moved a bunch of meters. So we can watch the clip, and I'm wondering if anyone has comments or sees anything differently or suggests I refed it differently. So there's the transfer. Life West doesn't like totally step out of the line out.
That's leaving the line out.
Oh, it is? You think
Yeah.
that's leaving the line out? Okay. So you do think that Life West like fell off the table and left the line out?
Right there. Right in the middle, that first person stepping back.
Okay.
I'm not sure
Any
it's
step
relevant
back?
because it was already obstruction. And we have a couple of teams doing the long arm transfer, and this is definitely why the long arm transfer becomes obstruction. That's really clear, and I think that's a great call.
We have some disagreement in the group, though.
What are we thinking? Other thoughts? I don't.
I
know.
agree. B-Town was doing illegal things, you know, sliding their supporters in front of their jumper.
Mhm.
But and probably deserve to be penalized.
Are you talking about number 4 there, Peter?
No,
You're concerned-
it's
no, it's not number 4.
one in the
Some-
middle.
in the
No, the
middle,
middle part, right?
8
Yeah.
and the 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 8 for
right?
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, if Beantown was squeaky clean, that was a penalty against Life West.
Yeah. It's kind of a chicken and the egg situation.
Yeah.
But Beantown committed their offenses before they started moving forward.
Right. Someone else's game had a long arm transfer, and it was either Orsu or the Amazons. I can't remember.
Amazons, it must have been when.
But it wasn't one that I would immediately penalize. It was one where it was midfield, and I would have just said to them, hey, let's do this better, and this is why. This one
Thanks
is
for
a
the feedback.
clear penalty. Great one.
So to summarize, I'm hearing from the group that it is a clear long arm transfer. And what I could have done is also talk to Life West about not leaving the line out early. At the next lineouts, I clarified to Beantown what the last penalty was, and they did keep the ball with the front person, and there were a couple, like 2 successful sacks.
Those sacks were fantastic.
One of them I accidentally vocalized maul, and then I was like, oh, that was a sack.
They were absolutely phenomenal.
The second one was like a perfectly another time sack. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that in women's rugby recently. Those were great.
So they didn't fall off, leave the line out, and they sacked it. And Beantown kept the ball at the front. So I think the players were definitely receptive to what I was saying. Okay, the third clip, which maybe we don't need to discuss. Well, okay, so it's called, it's probably at the,
Good timing early hit.
I think it was called Roll Away.
Okay, I saw that
This
one.
is something
Extra
that Bob and I
roller
actually
kick.
agreed on.
Okay.
Hold on, can we talk about Dan's question real quick?
Oh, sorry, I
Yes,
didn't see it.
sorry, I didn't see it. You want to read it?
Yeah, he wants to make sure he's tracking with the long arm transfer. So as well as what qualifies defense leaving the line out. So perhaps in order of operations, we should start with what is the standard for a long arm transfer? Is it about passing to a player who is not fully bound to the attacking team maul? And he asked if it's about lifters getting in front. No, it's not about lifters getting in front. In this case, it was about. So first, let's cover the long arm transfer and then get to leave the line out.
Okay. So with the long arm transfer, if the ripper is not bound, we get into trouble because then they run into the jumper. Does that make sense? So the jumper becomes the obstructing player in the long arm transfer situation. Dan?
Yeah, can you say it one more time so I can write it down?
Right. So in the long arm transfer, if the ripper does not bind to the jumper is the main player who becomes the obstructor when the ball is transferred. Now, there could also be lifters on the side of the jumper who then are also obstructing. But the jumper is the main obstructing player.
Copy.
Okay. And then the next part of that question?
It's the defense leaving the line out and their obligations. What qualifies as leaving the line out and what are their obligations?
Right. So they need to stay on the line that they are set on. They can open like a curtain along that line. If they step back, they have left the line out. 1 or 2 steps back, and we're just pinging them for leaving the line out.
Thank you.
Sure thing. And I can get videos of that too, if that will help.
think that would help me as well, seeing clear, leaving the line out.
Okay, let me make a note.
Thank you. Well, we only have 3 minutes, so do you have other things to do, Amanda? I don't need to do my third clip.
My stuff is gonna take 2 minutes, I think. So there's
Okay, we
third
got
clip.
1 minute. It's
Good
actually not
timing
the
or
clip
early
we
hit.
selected. It
What's
is
that?
Jackler going for ball while tackler is still there on the top of your screen. Oh, you scrolled up.
I see it.
Yes. And he's not here, but I feel the coaches felt that this tackler got away fast enough for the Jackler to have rights to the ball. What I saw in real time is that the tackler impacted how the Beantown player came into the breakdown, and
So that's your answer
Bob
for them.
agrees. Okay.
The tackler takes out the legs of the arriving Beantown player.
Like, even though
So
they
she-
rolled to the side.
Yeah, I mean, she totally impacts one or
Yeah.
two people coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Good
But when I
decision.
saw it at first, I was like, oh my gosh, she was out so fast.
Yeah,
But
same.
then I watched it again. I was like, oh no,
They
Emily's dead right.
Oh, okay. I guess instinct. Okay. Bob is right. I
It's
didn't
the
have
way
to
that
debate
they
anything.
asked this question that I wanted to kind of identify. Is the responsibility of the jackler to identify and wait until their teammate has fully rolled away? The answer to that is no, right? Because the tackler rolling away may or may not impact anything. So I don't think that the jackler needs to wait, and I don't think they should coach that way. It's just sometimes if your tackler rolls into the legs of the players, you're not going to get that poach, but I don't think you want to wait.
Yeah. Coach them to roll east-west.
Well, this player rolled east-west
Yeah,
as fast as they could.
did a
And just
great
happened
job.
to take out a slow down a Beantown player.
Yep, I agree. So that's the answer to that.
And then they were feeling like, I rolled as fast as I could, east-west. What could I have done?
Yeah, and they
That's what
did.
the player felt.
But sometimes if you take out another player, you're still going to get pinged no matter how quick you move.
That's fair.
So
Thank you. Those are my clips.
absolutely. Those were great clips.
Good job, Emily.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, so we can just wrap up.
Hey, Amanda,
Yes.
as long as we're on the Beantown game, do you want to hear about what Beantown's coach was thinking? Because he may want to try that in some other game.
Sure.
One of Beantown's reserve front row players starts the game at number 8. And what he wanted to do was take her out, and then after a suitable period of rest, substitute her in as a front row sub. And that's not part of the program.
Unless.
Unless it's an injury situation.
Perfect.
Or a card situation to maintain contested scrums. If he wants to make that change, he has to move her straight in from 8 to front row and, take out one of the front row players and then bring in somebody else right away. All has to happen at the same time.
Super. Team trends that I noticed from this week, we had some great things come in from you guys. And also for me, I would like to see more consistency with forward passes. Just an overall philosophy for the group moving forward, and maybe we should have discussed this sooner, but if we are going to call a forward pass, it needs to be clearly and obviously forward. So if you're 50-50 and you're not sure, that pass is not forward. So I think that should help with consistency moving forward if we all take that stance. With the breakdown, I don't think consistency is something we will ever get as referees at the breakdown because of the number of things that are happening at any one time. But we do just need to have focus on not rewarding the poacher unless all of those conditions are met. The tackler needs to be out of the zone. The poacher needs to have entered through the gate. She needs to be on her feet. She needs to beat the ruck. I'm sorry for using she. I will do better. And then I just want to say the lineouts were really better as a whole this week. So thank you all so much. next week, unfortunately, you see 3 games. Chris O'Malley's going to Berkeley, Andrew Stockton's heading over to Colorado, and Tim Liu will be stepping in to the team for an injured referee. We wish Emily quick healing. And unfortunately, the Atlanta game has been canceled. I don't know what's going to happen with Atlanta moving forward, but you guys will be the first to know when I know. Questions? Okay, I'm going to stop recording if I can find the thing to stop recording.